Noon. Welcome to the Diversion Authority Finance Committee meeting for July 21st, 2020. Don, could I please ask you to call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Peterson. Mr. Jacobson. Mr. Costin.
Here.
We have Mr. Edgar in for Ms. Johnson today. Mr. Montplaisir.
Here.
Mr. Redlinger.
Here.
Mr. Steen.
Here.
Mr. Pepcoin.
Here.
Mayor Carlson.
Here.
Mr. Reed. A quorum is present.
Thank you, Don. Next order of business is to approve the minutes from the June 23rd, 2021 meeting. I'll make a notation here, please. The special finance meeting minutes were not included in our finance packet, but they are on the invite link. So when we have a motion to approve the minutes for June 23rd, also the special meeting, if you would, please, your consideration.
Move to approve. Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. Is there a second, please?
Steen, second.
Second by Commissioner Steen. We will do a voice call on this. All those in favor, please signify by sigh.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 3 is the approval of the agenda. I would also like to note that on other business, item 8, under A, Diversion Authority Board approved MOUs. Number 3, the Stanley Township MOU should be removed from our consideration today. There was a meeting and their attorney did not show up, so we're not bringing that forward. So again, the order of the agenda is to remove under item 8A3.
Steen moves.
Thank you, Commissioner Steen. It's been moved to approve the agenda with the amendment. Is there a second?
Carlson, second.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been moved and seconded. This again will be a voice call vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 4 is the approval of the bills. We'll call on Mr. Costin, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In the bills listing today, $808,345. Again, recognizable people on the list and our partners in this project, so I didn't have any concerns or comments.
Steen moves to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. Is there a second, please?
Montplaisir, second.
Thank you, Mr. Montplaisir. It's been moved and seconded. Again, this can be a voice call vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Before we go any further, Mr. Montplaisir, I've heard rumors that you're going to be retiring on about August 3rd. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So will you be leaving the Diversion Authority Board because of your position?
I would assume so, yes.
Well, I would personally, as the finance chairman and a member of this board, like to thank you for your service and all the expertise that you have provided the Diversion Authority during that time. We probably won't have another meeting before that. So, Mike, I just wanted to thank you personally and thank you on behalf of a very grateful board for all the work that you've done.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. Next, we'll move on to the finance report. Mr. Costin, again, please.
Okay, on page 23, the 2021 spend of $73,278,227 and a cumulative total of $719,355,793. And then if you go to the next page, I did have a couple of comments on this page. This is a new format. You have not seen a multi-column format before. The reason for the change is because the master indenture of trust requires specific fund accounting. So you're going to see this evolve over time as more of the transactions mature within the diversion authority operations. So the column to the left, the diversion project fund, that is what you've seen in the past. That's our primary construction fund. There's a fund called the administrative budget fund. That's the one in the middle. That is designed to capture all of the administrative salaries and related just administrative expenses to run the program. And then there's an excess capital fund. And at the present time, that's designated as the fund at which the city of Fargo draws the fiscal agency from. So it's getting a little more busy, but we think you'll become accustomed to this format. If you notice off to the left in that diversion project fund, there's a header that says cash held in trust at the Bank of North Dakota. So there are 3 funds there as well, and you can see there's money starting to be accumulated in those funds. Just for the sake of the team and for understanding how it works now under this master indenture of trust, the city of Fargo and Cass County, upon receipt of the sales tax every month, we have to wire or ACH those funds out to the Bank of North Dakota, and they're responsible to withhold certain funds within the master indenture of trust, and then they return the remainder to us. So there's some different flow of funds that you wouldn't normally see, but the accumulation of the funds held at the Bank of North Dakota will show up in this balance sheet every month going forward. And that'll continue through the life of the project because it's tied to the WIFIA loan and all the compliance related to the WIFIA loan. So I wanted to be sure that the committee understood why this is changing and what impact it has. It's just a little bit more of a busy format, but to report this out, we have net position of $94,465,415, and that is up considerably from last month because we did close on temporary improvement bonds as well in June for, I think it was about $26.8 million. So kind of a busy month with regard to what's been happening in the financials there. Other than that, I didn't have any prepared comments.
Thank you, Mr. Costin, and thank you for the narrative of explaining this new report. Are there any additional questions for Mr. Costin?
This is Steen.
Yes, sir, Mr. Steen.
Hey, Kent, will we be seeing like a roll forward from month to month on these funds as well?
Yeah, we're having a discussion between Jacobs and us as fiscal agent at the present time. I mean, are you talking about kind of an operating statement type thing?
Oh yeah, like rolling the fund, the fund balance, like we've seen it in the past, roll forward from beginning of balance, end of month balance, that type of thing. Yep. However you.
Yeah, and we haven't quite formulated the flow because it's a little bit unique. The Jacobs has been rolling up the project budget and in the format that Joel has, and the entire program has been scripted around that type of format. And now this new format, because the WIFIA would change that protocol. We haven't quite connected all the dots on adopting that operational format, but I think we'll continue to work on that so that it'll appear as you're thinking it should appear.
Okay, thanks, Kent.
Yep.
Additional questions for Mr. Costin? Nothing? Again, we can use a voice roll call on this one. So a motion, please, to accept the finance report.
Steen moves to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. Is there a second, please?
Montplaisir, second.
Thank you, Mr. Montplaisir. It's been moved and seconded to approve the finance report as presented by Mr. Costin. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is the Executive Director's Financial Report. Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Chairman Dardis and members of the Finance Committee. You'll see here cost to date at basically the end of quarter two is 89 million in relation to our $219 million FY21 budget. So we're tracking very well as a linear progression. If you can recall, we started out fairly slow at the start of this year, and now we're kind of ramping up just kind of where we had anticipated to be. You'll see as you look at the different rows on here, yeah, there you go. If you look at the rows on here, you can see again, just like in previous months, majority of our expenses are in lands, on the lands program side of things. And of course, the third party MOU and the mitigation, and most of that is related to the settlement agreement that occurred towards the end of late last year with payments in 21. For the level 2 summary, I'll just go through this fairly brief because there isn't anything too earth-shattering here, but I just want to break this down to show that we continue to operate within all of our individual task budgets. No real concerns here. I'll move to the next page here. You can see here our other mitigation. You can see the $35 million payment there. Then you get into the lands acquisition, and you can see as we continue to move along in 21, we're still well within budget on a number of these, but we do have quite a bit of expenditures anticipated on the land side and land acquisition side as we get into quarter 3 and 4 for forecast year 21. Next
Joel,
page.
would you,
Yes.
could you go back to the last slide, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Here you go. This
So
one?
on diversion channel and associate infrastructure, the budget is $7,931,810. We're at 16.
All right. Yep.
And we're at 16 million. That's not in budget.
So let's see. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right.
You're on the
page.
wrong slide right now.
Yeah.
There, right there. Oh, you had it. Right there. If you go down under the land acquisition and mitigation, the budget for 2021 is $7,931,000. Okay, that's the budget for 2021. Cost to date, $16,967,000.
Yeah, and I will have to probably defer to Paul or Eric to explain that specific line item.
Sure, I can take that. I can.
On his last meeting, couldn't Mike tell us this on his last meeting?
I don't think we need to put him on the spot, Mayor Mahoney. We want to wish Mike a farewell here. We won't have him answer the tough questions.
All right. So I can attempt to explain this as best I can. The best explanation that I have for your understanding is that it has to do with the fiscal year and the intention that way. So a lot of the parcels closed in December. And so the parcels closing in there, but the payments weren't sent till January. And so there's a significant number in eminent domain that were spent in December, but they hit the books in January, and that's about that 9 million that you see there. We haven't adjusted that budget there yet, Mayor Dardis, because we have been tracking below the line, and we have budget available. We can balance that out if at the direction of the Finance Committee.
All right, so Paul, what you're saying is that as long as it tracks within the overall 2021 budget, you're not going to call that stuff out?
At this point, we're not going to adjust it. We are going to continue to track it And if we start to get close to that 69 million fiscal year budget, we will make adjustments and then come before the finance committee if we need to allocate contingency or some other resource to meet that shortfall.
All right. Thank you, sir.
We just haven't done that in the past because we've been underspending in other areas or underspending in the lands budget, and didn't feel it would be prudent at this time to balance that out and short a different area.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for that recollection. And I do remember we were, under budget in FY 2020, and you're right, it has to do with when the actual payments became due. And all of the last resort eminent domain properties, we had anticipated closing those deals and not going into last resort eminent domain proceedings in FY 2020, but that did not occur just because of the timing of when those expenditures became due related to the process. So.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just go to the last page here. There you go. And just to show that the program support services, our PMC, and then the Diversion Authority operations, we're tracking really well with both of those. Right at about the midpoint of the year, we're at about the midpoint of the budget. So certainly open to any additional questions that the committee may have.
Any questions for Mr. Paulson? Okay, move on to Joel to your contract actions.
All right, Mr. Chair, I have one contract action before you today for approval from the Finance Committee. This will be a roll call vote. It has to do with a change order for industrial builders for $102,152. This change order was a result of the contractor encountering unsuitable fill for the wetland mitigation project in the Oxbow-Hickson Bockley subdivision. And so in order to repair and take care of the issue, they had to haul in additional fill and haul out the unsuitable material. And so the resulting change order was $102,000 increase in work package 43G.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Questions for Mr. Paulson? This is a roll call item, so we need a motion to approve this action.
Carlson moves to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second, please?
Steen seconds.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract action with industrial builders for the amendment. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dartis,
Yes?
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Costin,
Yes.
Mr. Ebbinger,
Yes.
Mr. Montplaisir,
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Pepcoin,
Aye.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item number 8, another business. Again, we'll call on Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of contracting or MOU and agreement actions for consideration. The Stanley Township item we are not going to have on the agenda today because their legal counsel wasn't available to be at a meeting, so the Township Board didn't want to approve the agreement without their legal counsel available at the meeting. So we have a number of items. The first are 2 MURA agreements. That's regarding utility relocates for the southern embankment. The board will recall that we've tried to standardize the utility relocate process for the southern embankment so that as utility relocates are needed, we can have a task order issued with each of the utility companies that would set forth the specific costs and timeline for the utility relocation. And so we have the MURAs with both Quest Corporation / CenturyLink and the Diversion Authority, and then XL Energy Electric and the Diversion Authority. Then the other item that we have for approval is the Cass County Electric Cooperative MOU regarding the diversion channel and associated infrastructure. This is very much like the other MOUs regarding the utility relocates across the diversion channel. It provides for the coordination and cost-effective process of completing the utility relocates for those utilities that are located what will be underneath the channel or above the channel. I can certainly answer any questions that the Finance Committee may have, but we are making progress on these utility relocates. As you can see, the number of agreements is going down. We do have a few that are left. They're just a little bit more difficult than some of the other ones, but we're slowly working through all the MOUs.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Are there any questions for Mr. Shockley? This is an actionable item. And again, we are only considering the items 1, 2, and 4.
Move to approve, Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a second, please?
Steen seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. It's been moved and seconded to approve the MOU agreements as presented by Mr. Shockley, items number 1, 2, and 4. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis,
Yes?
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Costin,
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger,
Aye.
Mr. Montplaisir,
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Next order of business is the property acquisition status report. Mr. Dodds?
Chairman Dardis, Mr. Dodds is in another engagement I sent him to. The property acquisition status report is in your packet. I can certainly attempt to answer any questions related to that, but it is for your information, and it is similar to what we provide each month. So I'll just stand for any questions if there was any in the review of your packet.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Questions for Mr. Paulson regarding property acquisition status report? Mr. Paulson, my question is have you been engaged in any more, we have process and procedure that we have our land agents when they're negotiating with these people. Last month, you reported that you had engaged in one of them and we were able to make some progress because you have the authority and or latitude. I noticed that on some of the contracting recommendations it seems like there's a lot of money going out to our people that are doing the assessments and land acquisition and all that type of thing. Have you been engaged personally in any more of those types of things to try and settle some of these disputes that we have?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's an excellent question. Yes, I continue to work on a number of some of the more nuanced and difficult property transactions along with Eric and his team. You're absolutely right. There's some of these that have some different things going on that, whether it be somebody that wishes to stay in the property, longer than anticipated, working on the farmstead relocation issues, comparable property issues. So Eric and I are coordinating quite a bit on some of the more difficult property transactions. This is a very large lands program, and we do have a lot of individuals involved. And so we've had to somewhat take a very kind of broad brush approach to the property acquisition and be real process oriented. And that just doesn't always work for all of the different property owners with maybe some nuanced issues related to them. And so, there's certain issues where I have to get involved. We have to bring in even our general counsel in some cases, and kind of work through and find ways to meet the requirements of what the property owner is looking for. Now, this does not necessarily, or does it ever really apply to just a strict valuation issue. So, our process is in place to appraise these properties per our requirements and per our process. It's really related to more of the logistics of moving somebody off of a property, helping to reestablish them somewhere else, and those sorts of things. And so we continue to do that. And I think, there's some good stories coming out of the work that we're doing, and not to how do I say it? Not to say anything negative about our land agents, because they're doing an excellent job out there in the field. But we've standardized their toolbox, and we've done that so that we take a consistent approach to each landowner. And there's just some properties that just don't fall well within that standardized approach where, other individuals have to get involved, whether it's engineering, floodplain administration, administration or legal. And so that has been working very well, and we're going to continue to, help Eric and provide all of the necessary resources that he needs to be successful in acquiring the properties we need to acquire.
All right, thank you, Mr. Paulson.
Yeah.
Anything else, questions for Mr. Paulson? All right, our next meeting is going to be August 25th for the Finance Committee meeting. I thank you all for participating today, and we stand adjourned. Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Mayor Mahoney had his hand up.